And the Brisbane Lions will defend second spot on the table. And defend the Gabbattoir. Just their fifth win here this year. Against a plucky Port. Darcy Wilmot with a Malcolm Blight torp after the bell. The final won't change.
He wanted 50. He wanted 50 metres.
Alrighty, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name is Dave, and as always, a massive appreciation for joining us this week, which is a very, very tough week to do this. We obviously love doing this every week regardless, but with the result, as well as the kind of intense attrition we felt with the result and the injuries and quite some heartbreaking stuff in that. We'll get to that shortly, but unfortunately, with the Port Adelaide result was much like the German result in the Ardennes offensive of 1944, better known for some out there as the Battle of the Bulge, when despite an effort that initially shocked and pushed back Allied forces, it was ultimately in vain as simply the power of numbers and strength outweighed the initial efforts and success. Much like Port Adelaide on Saturday night, who started well and kept on making their pushes, but ultimately were just beaten by a fundamentally more sound side in the Brisbane Lions. It was, I've forgotten to get the final score here, but we lost by 28 points. Jamie, good evening. Once again, your therapeutic powers are needed on this podcast.
Yeah, I wish I didn't need to exude them as often as I've had to this year. And look, I hope they've come in handy because we've definitely needed them. G'day to you and everyone tuning in. Thanks for being here on this sultry Tuesday evening, or Wednesday, or Thursday, whenever you're consuming this, really. Yeah, disappointing, just flattening. Obviously, I think we may not have been the only ones in the basket of hope and expectation for something better. And in reality, for let's say 3.5 quarters, we got what we probably wanted. It's just unfortunate that half of a quarter is what ultimately undid the game, the contest, and effectively our season now. Yeah. On top of what, for us two and some of the broader public, bit of an average week last week, bit of a shit week, very sad and upsetting on one major count. And then the weekend, like I was at home, you were watching the game, and I messaged you and I just said, like, this isn't good for my mental health, and so I'm going to turn it off. And I was being serious, and you knew I was being serious, and I did. Yeah, just sometimes in the football season you just have to look at yourself and just be like, this isn't doing me any good, and just kind of turn away for a moment. Credit to our boys, like they dug in for the whole match, after quarter time. You can't really fault them. I guess the annoying sorry, you can't fault them to an extent, but after watching the game again, I think what's more frustrating than that 7-goal run that Brisbane found themselves on is the fact that we actually had ample opportunity just before that, but all the way throughout the match to cut the deficit even further down. I mean, I think we got him to about 16 points in arrears at one stage, deep in the third or fourth quarter. But we had opportunities to actually reverse that kind of 7-goal run, and in typical fashion, we just couldn't capitalize on our momentum when we had it. And it was another one of those, if I asked you before the game type of games, looking at a few stats, both player wise and team wise, just some markers that we would have been happy with if someone told you before the game that they were coming. But yeah, it just goes to show that if you let a team as good as Brisbane, who are the reigning premier, it must be said, at home, if you let them off the leash and you're highly unaccountable for the slightest of times, then they'll seriously make you pay.
Yeah.
which was just it's just gutting in the moment and then in the aftermath because now there's a lot of postmortems and future gazing going on, and there's still a fair chunk of the season to go, to be honest.
Hmm. Yeah, just you talking about the score and how the scoring worked and where we got back to 16 points. It is interesting. I did put the match timeline in my notes because it's just fascinating to look at in a maybe macabre way. I don't know, because you've got this real for 3 quarters. You've got this slight, like very little deviation to it. It's just up and down. When we make our little runs, they kick a one back. It's very an even contest for 3 quarters, and to be fair, for the first part of the first quarter, but then there's one part in that latter third of the first quarter where it's just
Hmm.
a steep incline of a step ladder that heads up to where Brisbane got to their buffer, and that's the modern AFL can be won in one 5, 6, 7 goal burst, and then you just manage. If you're a good side, a fundamentally sound side in what you understand what you're doing, you can kind of hold. And Brisbane did hold us. I think we caused them problems. They couldn't play the game in the way they wanted to in
Mm.
large parts, and we were just through sheer desire and we were maybe some our disposal efficiency numbers over across the game are actually better than Brisbane's, which is surprising. I think there's one factor that probably makes ours feel worse in mind, which is going inside 50. We'll talk about that maybe when we get to the lines. But yeah, I mean, we got to within 16 points about 4 or 5 minutes into the fourth quarter. So, at that point, you're thinking 15 minutes to go, you need 3 goals. Yes, you've got to hold them at bay. But, and it was a good game in ball. Like both teams were moving the ball back to front quite well at times. Reasonably accurate kicking. Once the teams, again, inside 50 entries aside, once teams got in front of goal, they were reasonably accurate. Both teams were on the plus side of the goals versus behinds metric.
Mm.
The if I told you thing you were talking about before, the one stat that if you told me that it went the way it did, I'd be like, yeah, well, we would have lost. Clangers 70-45. That's just like,
Yeah, it
yeah.
says it
Um,
all.
and then we're only we were what, -6 on -6 in turnovers. But again, when we lose
Yeah.
the turnover battle, we more often than not lose. They just were able to turn the ball over and punish us better. And when we did get our turnovers, we just whether it be the profligate inside 50 entry or whatever, and some of those moments they're just got some better users in and who have the experience. I mean, they've won a premiership. They kind of have that just confidence in themselves as a side, and you could just tell. And I mean, before we get to the lines, I think the major storyline of the game is unfortunately injuries, and that
Hmm.
has to be mentioned as its own section of the podcast tonight. I think as just such a major reason the game goes the way it does, because we're down. We're obviously down a sub in the first quarter when Vicentini goes off, and we're like, okay, we're going to be bringing Jackson on pretty soon, and then
In that moment, I sorry to cut in. I actually thought it may have been a blessing in disguise. And then immediately after having that thought, Asava, through
mm,
sheer defensive accountability, rips his hamstring off the bone. But yeah, sorry to cut in there. Yeah, just
well, that
mm.
was no, you're right. We've loved Hugh Jackson's work. Obviously, the other guys in the game against
Yeah,
Carlton the week before. And yeah, I was like, when it was just like, because I wasn't sure about the two rucks thing in this game because I thought, Darcy Fort was gettable by one or the other. So, and I think Sweet had an okay
yeah,
night. And we'll talk again, getting ahead to the lines a bit. But yeah, but then Asava goes down shortly after. So you're down a man on the bench by quarter time. And kind of all that's happening around when that run that Brisbane has happens. Now, I think we could have handled that better with the guys out there. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
sometimes what good sides have to deal with is attrition and work out how to manage it. And giving up a 7 goal run, while you can say, yes, there's mitigating factors, it's not an excuse. Like, both things can be true. Like, you can say, yeah, we shouldn't have done that, but also there was factors involved. You're dealing with, changing rotations, possibly you've already had to move, because Bergman probably goes back a bit more because he doesn't
Yeah,
get nearly as many
definitely.
CBAs and he was probably expected to going into the game. There's just moving pieces happening while Brisbane probably sniff like a lion in the jungle, sniff blood and attack, and they that's what good teams do. You take advantage of whatever's in front of you, and yeah, those two in the first quarter obviously hurt, but then just when we're kind of getting our feet back in the game, and it's just like, okay, we've got to run, and then Sam Pepper's having this amazing, 20 minutes that he's
Oh,
like
just a
barometer.
fantastic half,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. No, you're
but
right.
I know what you mean. He kind of
He
elevated
was
it even
building.
again.
He was building into the game more and more as the game
Oh,
went on,
he
and
looked sensational. He looked on track for one of his better games, if not the season, in the past few years, to be
when
honest.
you consider the opposition, I would agree. Like that's kind of like,
He was running on top of the ground
yeah.
before the incident happened. He was fleet of foot. He was sure of hand. He'd obviously already got on the scoreboard a couple of times.
Hmm.
I mean, what did he have? 16 disposals when he was injured? So, I mean,
Yep.
you extrapolate that out. That's a sensational game,
Yeah.
or it had the makings of a sensational game.
It was 58% time of ground he had in the game in the end, or no more than that. So yeah, 16 disposals in that time. You extrapolate that out to maybe the 75-80% that he's going to have usually. I'm trying to think what kind of
Mm.
numbers he has. Then you're probably looking at a pretty good game. But yeah, he goes down, and then like at that point, I was just like, this game's done. We kept on fighting it out beyond that,
Fuck this
and
shit. Yeah.
but yeah, well, I was yeah, it was. I mean that did, as you said, we've had a tough week. Like we're Liverpool fans, like everyone knows the Diogo Jota news. Like while we it's not someone personally, you do feel this connection with players that you spend every weekend with them. That's why these ones hurt so much, and so we deal with
Hmm.
that. Um, I mean, this, and now I mentioned it to him now. I got some scans and some doctor's appointment last week to confirm I have a hernia, so that's hurting right now. I've got a cold now. Like it was just like everything was, and then like Pepper goes down. It's just like it's not like these things like he'll play next year, life goes on, but it's just like in the moment, and still even going into this week, I'm just numb. Like it did break me in a way, like not in a major like life way, but it's just like you do get these moments that break you a little bit as far as you've had a bad week. It's just like this is the cherry on top of this shit sandwich, and that's how I feel. I can't even imagine how he feels having done this before, and you can tell the way he reacts is a man that's done it before and knows he's just done it again. That's like
Mm.
why I feel for him in that moment, because like yeah, when you do it for the first time, I can't even remember how he acted, but people don't know what they've done. Like my wife's torn her ACL, and she was told by the doctors at first, like, oh, I think you're fine. Like, see how it goes for a couple of weeks, then we'll get an MRI. And she okay, and she just believed him. She didn't know, but then um, you know, further down the track, it's confirmed. But like when you've done it, I think he knew, and yeah, just watching those scenes of him kind of frustratingly push the doctors away and on the bench afterwards, it
Hmm.
was just like, oh, broke me. And I thought that at that point, I thought, game's done. But and I'll let you say a piece about it in a moment. But I thought credit to the boys afterwards, though. Cliche credit to the boys, but they fought the game out to try and still, and they still got it within 16 points well after that happened. And the commentators credited them. They said that this team should be in the dirt at this point, but they're still trying
Hmm.
and running it out as best as they can. They didn't look, for all the criticism that's been warranted at times this year for our preparation, our conditioning, fitness. We were running pretty well despite looking also being pretty gassed by the end of the game. So yeah, it's mixed emotions for me on the night, but yeah, it was rough seeing Peps in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's not much more I can add. Yeah, it's just a flattening moment, like you said, when you spend every weekend with these people, and and then as an extra layer, being a member of a club, whatever club it is, it doesn't necessarily have to be a sporting club, but when you're a member of a club, you do feel part of the process and part of the environment in a way, and you're invested clearly, because you care. And yeah, just seeing anyone, and I mean, Asava's reaction to his injury too was
Hmm.
quite flattening. He's obviously had his health battles this year, but in the midst of that, he's emerged in his own right as having a career best season, and then for it to just be ended while it was rising
Yeah.
is gutting as well. And it is interesting. We were obviously playing for our season, so had it been, had we been even further away from the eight before this game on Saturday, would we fight it out as well as we did? Who's to know? But the fact of the matter is that they did. Um, we were 40 points down at one or two stages, and um, I think the scoreboard's probably flat as Brisbane, but that's all compounded by that run. And I mean, yeah, yeah. So the injuries are shit. It just
Mhm.
epitomizes our season in a way.
Yeah.
Um, but what more can you do? What more can you do? It never really meant to be. It kind of had roadblocks, speed humps as soon as it started, and
Mm.
it's never really like it was a cruel joke. We finally get nigh on our strongest side for the year, and
Yeah.
it all gets cut down to size within a half of football. It certainly, yeah, if you don't look at it with gallows humor, yeah, it's a tragedy, and it'll make you cry. What makes it worse though, with that Brisbane run is they just didn't miss. Like
Yeah.
there wasn't even that breathtaking, not in the obvious way, but opportunity to take a breath is what I'm getting at. With a behind, just a random behind, they went, yeah, goal, 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 goal.
Yeah.
Before their seventh goal in that quarter, they kicked a behind eventually, and even in saying that, like we had inside 50 opportunities, but we just butchered it. And yeah, we one would think that we didn't like it was so hapless that we didn't even get our own opportunities back, but there were opportunities there.
Mm.
We just couldn't stem the flow.
Yeah. Um, I mean, speaking of gallows humor, and I've found it quite interesting. I did think about our last game at the Gabba a few years ago when we did cop those injuries late in the game
Mm.
that we led. And Ken's made mention of it in the post-match, post-mortem, having a few jokes about let's knock it down now already and rebuild the
Yeah,
stadium.
yeah. Well, and Brisbane had what was it, five ACLs of their own last season. So,
Yeah.
um, mm, yeah.
Jack Payne out
Ah,
now as well for him. Yeah. Yeah, it's not something I'd thought about too much because I obviously the SCG is the one that's really copping which is funny that we played there in one of the worst SCG games and we were falling all over the place and somehow got away with that injury. But then this one's the one that does it, or obviously the game against Geelong.
yeah, it's cursed.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, yeah, there is that gallows human part of it, but I mean, who knows what the ground issues are? But we had that game against Geelong as well, where hamstrings were pinging everywhere for both sides, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly what you know. I wouldn't. The SCG is the one that is an outlier because it actually does look dangerous, and there's multiple examples of this one. I mean, Pep's just they just kind of collapsed the way he's turning, and yeah, I'm not sure. Basava already has had a hamstring issue this year, so what you know that's kind of maybe a pre-existing thing. And then Vicentini's knee or ankle, it's just tall man come down on foot like so. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
also enjoyed Ken's some of that little humorous anecdote about the Gabba, so that was fun. Also didn't mind that I've mounted out of molehill by some people with the candy teeth thing. I did think as soon as he did it, I was like, for fuck's sake, this is going to get people are going to get way too angry about this. But yeah, don't need to spend too much time on it. But I thought it was funny. I was just like, yeah, I used to do
Yeah.
that when I was a kid. I'd still do it occasionally when I get some candy teeth and a bag of lollies.
Yeah, I hated it. But yeah, I'm not gonna spend any more time on it because 3,000 people in North Queensland get killed by crocodiles. To quote Bob Catter.
um,
May a thousand blossoms bloom. Um, yeah, no,
who's
I
that?
hated it, but yeah, yeah, it is an insignificant portion of what is, yeah, a rather disappointing
Mhm.
night of football.
Yeah. Let's get to the lines. Start. I guess we'll start with defense as per usual.
Let's do it.
It's going to be a tough one tonight, though, because of just the injuries are a major storyline of it. But, Sava going down early, so we don't get a fifth week in a row of 11 plus intercepts and see him get
I know he couldn't
rarefied air.
break any records.
Yeah, because and to throw back in case for those that were listening to last week will know, but to anyone new, welcome. Asava after the Carlton game had gone 4 straight games with 11 plus intercept possessions, which was had only been done by 2 other players before that. So he was in quite rarefied air in this little run of what you can say. Whether I don't think he's going to get an All Australian jacket, but he was in All Australian form for 4 weeks. If he extrapolated that form out over a season, you'd be hard pressed not to give him a jacket. So that's kind of form he was in. But I thought with him out, I thought Zerk Thatcher stepped up quite well in moments. He had a moment on the line where he went back and for what looked like a goal at every step, he just got himself back. I think we struggled to deal with their mosquito fleet, though. That was kind of the imbalance of our backline at times, and that's where their quick ball movement coming in, we just were getting pulled out of position. And I'll let you talk about what you saw, but that's just how I felt in that period of play. And even at times when they got it forward, if they got like some of the opportunities they got, it still because we held like Logan Morris didn't have much of a game. Hipwood was there and thereabouts, but it was the Baileys, the Camerons, and co that were really. I told you on the night, by the way, in text that I had the TV on mute a lot because I couldn't fucking stand listening to Country Road again. So
I know. Yeah,
but yeah, it was a bit of that. Somewhat the imbalance that we have, I think, led to some of that scoring because it was their smalls that got away from us a little bit, and we just couldn't quite contend with them. Their speed of ball movement coming in, and then just what they did once they got it in there.
Yeah. Zach Bailey obviously had a bit of an all-timer. His champion data rating was in the 30s, which is rare.
Yeah. He was plus 12.3 on his expected score.
Yeah.
His actual
That's
score
what I mean. Like
5 goals.
There's a patch of that where they didn't miss.
Yeah. Like to be plus 2 goals on your expected score is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? So we kicked 3 of the first 4 goals, but then his first goal to skip over the top of Alir, like fuck off. Yeah.
I'd cold
and
blue
then the
medicine
floodgates
that
open
memory
like
away for a second, but yeah, now it's coming back to me.
Alir would have been just thinking the whole way, yeah, cool,
Yeah.
until it bounced literally over the top of him, and he's not small. But there was also a reason I think why the mosquito fleet of theirs was so prevalent, and it's because there was limited pressure from up the field. I do think that the defense probably lowered their colors as an entire line
Mm.
in the early portions of the match too. Um, yeah, I think unfortunately Lockie Jones hasn't come back from the hamstring as well as he
Mm.
went into his break of hamstring, and he took like a quarter to get into the game. I'm pretty sure he tried to handball to Zerk Thatcher, who was already essentially getting tackled, which led to, I think it was Zach Bailey's second goal after that lucky goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, the rest is history a little bit. Once the nerves had settled a little bit, like I feel like they settled, but the damage was somewhat already done. And it's not entirely their fault, and they have been expected to absorb a lot of undue pressure that's not their fault
Mm.
for portions of this season. And that was definitely part of the case in this specific moment of the game. But I also think they did some things or didn't do some things that they would like to reverse if they had their time again. But obviously after quarter time, things were a lot more solid. Like you said, BZT had moments where you go, yep, cool, you're stepping up, but then he gave away those 2 free kicks in scoring positions, and
Mm.
yeah,
They were kind of
yeah,
backbreakers a little bit because they were always like it was always when it felt like we were getting a run together, and then they get a foray
yeah,
forward, and they we'd give up a free kick or something like that. Yeah. Um, it was an inconsistent and there wasn't like the structure that we thought, that we've been seeing a bit over which has been aided by up the field, better field work up the field. Just felt like it got pulled away a little bit by just, and again, they're a very good side. So that's what good sides do to you is they break down your structure and kind of make it look a bit panicked, but that's exactly what it did. That Lockie Jones moment, I remember on the night, just sitting there thinking, oh God, he's done that, one of those classic moments. I don't mean to say classic to make it sound like he does it all the time, but it's just like he just always has one of those high profile ones when he's not quite in form, and he'd found that form. And it is frustrating that he does seem to struggle to come back from injury in good form. Like, Asava came back from his hamstring after that Geelong game, and Asava came back and had 4 all-time weeks of football, whereas Lockie Jones, it seems like he has to build up again, and it's just you need to be, if you're declared match fit and you're ready to go, then you need to be coming in with your head match fit as well. And I think that's just where he kind of, it's a confidence player. It's a younger player thing maybe as well. You need, sometimes it's all a lot of it is between the years, but he did struggle. And he's one of the ones that you really would have been wanting to lean on to be, particularly as one of the faster, stronger guys down there as well, to be able to deal with some of that, fast movement coming in. You want your guys like Lockie Jones and, whether it be whoever's gone back there to help in the wake of Asava's injury, to be able to contend with that speed of movement coming in, because you are, your Elias and Zerk Thatchers, while they're not going to be the ones to close space and stuff like that sometimes as well. It's hard to put a ton of blame on them, but there's it's blame goes around everywhere, and there's a few that got let up by them, unfortunately, and again, but that comes down to some of the ease that it was coming in as well. So they didn't get a lot of help in that period, but it was just let down by the structure not quite working, and Brisbane exploiting it quite well. They saw the space.
I have, yeah. You can't do much better than that. Like, I think it was a record amount of time, like a short amount of time for Brisbane to kick 7 goals.
Yeah.
Like they kicked 7 goals in 16 minutes or something, which I think is some sort of a record for them.
Yeah, it's crazy watching. I didn't watch it. I haven't been able to watch a full replay. Said Jamie off air, I've been quite crook the last couple of days. So, but I did watch a brief highlights package earlier today, and just seeing the with 12 minutes to go, they still hadn't scored a goal in the quarter. So, and and then even then they score their first one, and then as Country Road is finishing, SPP kicks one to get the 2-goal buffer back out. With 12 minutes to go. I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And then after that, it's 7 goals to none. Like it's a brutal period of play, and it's not, we've had a few instances of that this year now against good sides. Like this isn't like an isolated event. It's happened against the Dogs. It's happening against Geelong. It's happening against Collingwood. Probably forgetting another one, but the Crows kicked not like a 7-goal period, but they had like those 3 quick goals that kind of tore the game away later on in the showdown as well.
If Sydney had kicked straight, it may have been very similar at Adelaide Oval. Yeah. I forget what I was going to say. I had something just burning there, burning bright, but it's gone out.
Like the spark.
I'll get it back in a second.
Like the spark of our season. It's. I have to say there's a what?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just remembered what it was. It was the message that I sent you on the night about like we'd come with the perfect intent, and our pressure gauge was above 200 for that early part of the game. But it was as if I said to you, it was as if after we'd kicked the first 3 out of 4 goals for the game, and our pressure was up, coming off of the back of the Carlton game last week or last round, it was as if we just expected it to keep rolling on that way. That's how it seemed to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brisbane aren't Carlton, and they were just like, well, no, you're in our house. We're the reigning premier. Like, we're going to hit back, of course. And you mentioned those big runs of goals against some good sides. It just, epitomizes maybe a bit of a layer of immaturity to the squad as a whole. Um, and nor not that it should be, but we are, it's a transition year of transition. We're in the younger half of sides in the competition. It's a serious lesson that we have to learn.
Hmm.
And it goes into the kind of boom or bust nature of our football club over the last decade. To be fair, like we're not strangers to big runs of goals in games that we inevitably lose. And to be fair, over the last 5 years, um, prior to this, it hadn't been that many games that we lost since
Yeah.
2022, which is very, very similar to this year on the injury front. So, yeah, we just seem to lax at the precisely the wrong time after
Hmm.
we'd made such a good start.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Do you have anything more on the defense, or you want to move on?
No,
Because yeah,
I mean, part of that goes to the midfield, which,
it
yeah,
does. Yeah,
so a
and
perfect segue, I reckon.
it's all about the synergy between lines, and yeah, it's unfortunate that the again, I think there's parts of this we'll never know with the injuries because players getting pulled out. Just looking at my my patented CBA numbers, like it was Sweet, obviously, yeah, don't he was top with 89%. Zach Butters was at 89%, so he was pretty much at every one. But then it's unlike last week where we had Butters, Butters, Bergman, and Drew. Those three were kind of at least 75% of CBAs each. It drops down to 61, 58, and 56 between Wines, Horne-Francis, and Drew. Bergman was only at 31, which was a drastic drop on what he did the week before. Partly, again, I think injury played a part in that. So we'll never know what the plan was going, for the full match without, going back and playing the game without the injuries, sliding doors and all that.
Hmm.
But yeah, again, I think when we get a little bit more inconsistent in the middle, but that's obviously just one aspect of the midfield game. Just I think some of the players were playing. We had some pretty good performances in there. It's just like at crucial times, just the class and maybe a little bit more of the synergy that Brisbane have versus our guys who are all very individually talented, but there was just a little bit of disconnect at times. Um, Overhand, like I think one of the major differences between how Brisbane and why Brisbane are such a, I don't think I haven't dove into that speed of ball movement stuff that Champion Data are doing too much yet, but Brisbane are one of the better teams as far as their speed of ball movement from back to front. Um, they just utilize good kicks better, and we're still, we handled far more in this game than, there's not massive discrepancies, but it was 211 kicks to 192, whereas they had 128 handballs to our 154. I think there was one quarter where we had 50 to 18. Like there was a big discrepancy in one of the quarters where we had a lot of the ball. There was a lot of handballing. And again, I love the handball game when it like handball game is integral to footy. Like people that get frustrated with it, and just want kick. Like there is a reason to it, but I still think we just lean to it too much when we're under pressure. And the Lockie Jones to Zerk Thatcher one is a good example. And we just we invite pressure on ourselves because we like to hold the ball and the handball out and find the perfect option rather than just,
Yeah.
Brisbane just get it forward at all costs and trust that their teammates will make it work. And yeah, there's just that slight difference in the game there. It's great. What's funny? We won contested possession. Whoa!
I know. Again, if I had told you before the game type of stat,
Yeah.
that was definitely on the board. But the thing is that there was still enough time in the game for our midfielders to have good games.
Hmm.
Like we're really only talking about a 10, 15 minute patch of football that like it's just crazy because uh yeah, for what was 3.5 quarters, it was a good game. It was a good game of football,
Yeah, it was a
And
good
then when you
game.
consider that we were
Yeah.
running on fumes, so to speak, in
Yeah.
the end, um, yeah, the midfielders got the talking to that they deserved at quarter time,
Hmm.
and so you bring up the teeth, the candy teeth thing, and yeah, while I said I hated it, you also see the Ken at quarter time doing what he needs to do in that moment, and they deserved it. He got all the leaders, basically all the midfielders, and he eyeballing every single one of them. And what was it? The Lynchy um, interviewed him after halftime, perhaps, or after quarter time, and he just said that. What did you say to him? What did you say to the boys or something? And Ken was just like honesty. It just gave him honesty, and it was in that Ken way, whereas he just didn't want to give anything away, and was
Yeah.
just boiling it down to one word, and it looked like very honest feedback, which they deserved.
Commentators enjoyed
You
that for a minute
mentioned,
after that. They were like, "What does he mean by honesty? Honesty? Honesty?" I was just talking about honesty for a minute afterwards. Like,
oh, they did, yeah. It was a
Derm and
little bit
Guy were just
strange
like,
because it
"Yeah,
was like it's obvious what he's getting at,
yeah,
but he wasn't giving the broadcast the ins and outs of what it was like they would have craved. But
yeah."
you mentioned the handball game, and obviously Brisbane are gold class. It's not a surprise to hear that they're kind of in the upper reaches of the speed of ball movement statistic, and they always say that aspiring teams will always try and copy premiership winning teams, and again, Brisbane are the reigning premiers, even though they've had an indifferent year. They've still got that quality, which we discussed on our Patreon show. And thanks for everyone jumping on Patreon to join us there. So that's where we aspire to be. Like we've clearly made changes to our game plan this year, and again, for large portions of this game, that new game style, if you think about what it could look like if with, a bit more refinement,
Mhm.
there's things to like about it. It's just when you get to, yeah, in the clutches of pressure, in the middle of the ground, or you make your way to 70 meters out, and then you decide not to launch it or look for an option,
Mm.
and stuff it up. Basically, that's where we just can't continually let ourselves down, and
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah.
Inside 50 entry. We can talk about that now if you want. That was,
Of course. Like, and even from people who were better equipped
yeah,
to deliver inside 50 were picking out Brisbane interceptors or just clearly picking out Brisbane defenders. It was, yeah, again, it added to that layer of frustration because we actually had ample opportunity to reverse what was a shitty portion of that first quarter.
yeah. There's 3 or 4 moments, and I can't remember. I didn't get to rewatch because I was crook, but I think it was a Boak one going inside 50, which the cynics would say, well, Boak's not a great kick anyway, but he does a lot of them. The problem was a lot of them were like not much pressure on them, and they would just pick out over. I think there was one that overhit. Like Rioli was kind of there for a mark, and it just went over his head and landed in an
Oh, and
uncontested
he
Western
and
runner.
he dropped a mark too, really. Well, we'll get to the
Yeah,
forward line too, and it's just another one of those put it in the chances that we didn't take
yeah,
column.
yeah, uh,
Yeah, but I mean, like you mentioned, Boak. I'm more talking like Butters,
yeah.
Bergman, even Joe Richards had a strangely fumbly night. He still he
I
still
think
did his hard work
particularly
up
his
and down the
first
field.
quarter, he was too
Yeah, just
two
couldn't get
touch
a
show
handle
for
on it.
a rare night of two touch. He grew into the game and got better. I think he was at a plus point. Maybe when Hugh came on, like his other guy. Um,
Yeah, his partner in crime
yeah,
somehow. We've lumped those two together as the
exactly.
other guys now. Yeah. Huge was more of the Mark Wahlberg this game, and Joe was a bit more Will Ferrell
Yeah, yeah.
against Brisbane.
Joe's Joe's out there like I did my first desk pop, and then Hughes Hughes
Yeah.
Hughes been subbed on. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? That's not a thing. Get to it, Joe. And then they got to it. Um, Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bergman missed one. I'm trying to think because again, I didn't get to watch a replay, but yeah, there was a few. I just remember a couple of times I'm like, on, you guys are so much better than this, and you're not like Brisbane did apply pressure as the quarter went on, but there was times in that period where we could have stamped our authority that we just missed. We were not under a whole lot of pressure. I mean, Brisbane only laid what fucking their tackle numbers for the game are pretty average. Brisbane only laid like 35 tackles for the game. Like their
So I was
pressure
gonna say, I
the
thought it
pressure
was in the
numbers were okay,
30s.
but yeah, like when we laid 51 ourselves, like, and we were doing it like Brisbane were almost 20 tackles below their seasonal average. So, they're a little bit lower than us on the season. But yeah, so missing targets. I think that one of the ones that really burned on me and my watch. I think he's going to be fine going forward, but Jace Burgoyne's probably my watch for the week. He really needs to
Mm,
get his ass into gear
I
as
think
far
he
as
was mine too. If I
yeah.
just
I could have had a
bring up my
few.
notes here, yeah.
Um, that kick that he takes that mark, it comes after some good pressure or good regaining of possession. We work it around the 50 arc, and he puts that one. He just needed to like lay it out to the left for whoever was leading into the pocket there, and you can tell he just
I think
completely
he's got the leg.
he can, and he
Are you
just
talking about the one
completely.
he could have had a shot?
No, he was out. He was just outside 50.
Oh,
He
okay.
could have.
Yeah.
He could have. I think he probably the man on the mark might have been on the like 48 out. So maybe he could have taken that.
Yeah.
But there was an
All right.
option, and I think he just hits it on the right side of his boot when he meant to kind of like,
It
you
just
know,
goes a bit limp-footed when he
yeah,
kicks it, and
and
it doesn't go anywhere near where he wanted
and
it
it
to.
looks like he picked out a Brisbane target. Like that's how egregious of a kick it is. And there's a real groan from the commentators, and they show Berg like Jace afterwards, and he's looking frustrated with himself. So I know he's not, but it's just like that's the between the ears stuff. Like think through. You're a class silky player. Like you've got that Burgoyne blood running through you. Like we know that you can be, and we've seen it. You've just got to put it all together and understand that every moment on the field, what you've done before doesn't lead into what you're doing now. You've got to do it, go again. This whole like Kobe Bryant, going to the gym and taking 400 shots before breakfast, like and he'd have to make 400 baskets, and he'd stay there until and he was doing that, and in late into his career. You got to every kick is a process. Just because you've had a good start and had some good games and had some highlights. He's my watch because he's just let himself down a bit in a few areas. He's had some great like that moment. The mark against he's had a few good marks lately. That goal against Melbourne was great. Like he's had good moments
I
as well.
think for a winger, he's been having a serviceable season. It hasn't been outstanding,
Mhm.
but a winger is a role player at the end of the day. Winners aren't necessarily winning you games of football. They're contributing to an overall game plan. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
one of the more obvious things that someone could say about football. But yeah, we see certain wingers in certain teams take advantage of sides at certain stages of the season, but they're all a cog in a machine. And in that regard, I think he's had a pretty good season.
Mhm.
He started really well, but yeah, this is one game that some of the more immature mistakes
Mhm.
came to the fore at stages.
And we had that. What was it?
Um,
There was a game a couple of weeks ago. I just remember us both being frustrated with a couple of his kicks, and it's just like there's a bit too much. Like,
it was that Melbourne game.
yeah, it was, and then he kicks the goal as well. But and hasn't. I think he
Mm.
has an okay game after that. But it's just like there's a few too many of those, and he's not getting enough ball to like that. It's just the pendulum swung a little bit more back to like being there. You want, as you said, they're not going to win you games, but they can also attribute to not taking advantage of things when you're like because you're getting less possession. You're a role player, so but that's why the good wingers shine is because they do make the most of littler opportunities to make themselves known in the game. And like Jace clearly has the skills to do it. It's just like getting it all together. And again, he's young in his career; he'll be fine. But
Yeah, and I
he's
mean
just my
he's
watch.
matched up against. I mean, from the Brisbane's team sheet, you've got Zach Bailey, Hugh McCluggage, and Jared Berry on their centre line.
Mm,
So he had his work cut out for him on the night,
yeah.
matchup wise. So even more so when you do get an opportunity, yeah, just find that way. And like, so obviously a lot of discussion will be about the lead up to next year and whatnot. And at the end of the day, we just need to reduce a handful of these critical mistakes,
Mm,
and which generally are turning out to be goals this season.
yeah.
That's the difference, really. That's the difference between where we find ourselves now and where we aspire to be every season, and pushing up into the top half of the top eight. It's in this day and age, it's very small margins, and it comes down to some critical mistakes or some fantastic pieces of play going either way. But yeah, he found himself unfortunately with one of those mistakes that at least cost us a scoring opportunity. Who knows if it would have been a goal in another universe? They may know, but just on the midfield, while we're on it, I did think that again, amidst all the injuries, like I mentioned, Visentini in the moment, I thought it may have been a blessing in disguise. Sure, it would have been nice for Bergman to spend more time in the middle to see again how that continues to evolve.
Mm.
But credit to Willem Drew, with us forced to put Bergman back, and I think our defense did shore itself up with Bergman going back. I think he actually ended up being our top champion data rated player, Miles Bergman.
He did, yeah.
Didn't feature on a lot of other like everyone's radars in terms of votes or credit overall in that regard. But him going back, but then I thought Drew going into the middle, even though Bergman's not, he's an accountable midfielder in this new iteration of Miles Bergman. Just something seemed better. And a credit to Drew helping our more dynamic players continue that defensive accountability once we kind of once they got their kind of heat from the
Yeah.
coach, for want of a better term. So yeah, just a little bit of credit for our old WD28.
Mhm.
I thought just our balance looked good when he was kind of forced to attend more CBAs and Bergman going into defense shored that up a little bit better. So yeah, it's just added to the shock of us playing so well after those injuries because we all know, like everyone had a thought of how the game was going to unfold. I mean, your tweet summed it up perfectly. Like, is it going to be one of the a stack of injuries and then get pumped like, kind of games to paraphrase your tweet?
Yeah.
And in the moment, I'm sure, yeah, the majority of Port supporters were all thinking the same thing. It was like, all right, how big is this margin going to be? And
Mm.
again, to their credit, you got to acknowledge the good and the bad. The bad is obviously horrific in this moment and in such a swift amount of time. But the good aspect is that they stuck at it. And I guess this is a shoehorned spotlight. Travis Boak
Mm.
turned back the clock. I mean, again, like he had a few moments that stuck out and a few minds moving quicker than the body type stuff. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, he dug deep as an ex-captain of the club. He kind of he summoned that inner spirit of being an ex-captain and kind of it helped put the team on his back a little bit. He ended up going at 81.5% disposal efficiency. And unfortunately, he'd done so well to get that shot on goal in the fourth quarter. And again, you're like, sliding doors moment. It's straight in front.
Yeah.
It is, 40 meters out. Travis Boak isn't a noted goal kicker in the last 2 to 3 years, it must be said. But
We had a
yeah,
lot of
you
fun with
just,
that. Well, gallows humor with that last year, didn't
he
we? Yeah.
we did, yeah. And thankfully, we were having a much better season win loss.
Yeah.
But yeah, nah, just got to pay the old man credit.
Mm.
Yeah, he really lifted when it seemed that the whole game was going to unravel. He got his due credit from the commentators, and then we were all feeling that moment when he took that contested mark to have a shot on goal, and it just shaves to the right.
Yeah.
It doesn't miss by a lot. You just wish that it could be different, and yeah, it would be interesting to see what had happened. But overall, yeah, the old boy needs credit because he definitely lifted. He turned back the clock a little bit in some regards, and
Yeah.
he was taking in some deep breaths as the game wore on, and tapping into some of that off-season training that he's been working so hard at over the last, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, he had 7 marks and 8 score involvements. Like, that's and along with the disposals and the disposal efficiency, like in game, what, 380
Mm.
something or whatever it is. Yeah. Now you're going to take that every day of the week from a bloke like Bloke. And, yeah, yeah, the goal miss was disappointing, but, we're never he's not being paid to kick goals. He's being paid to, well, he's at this point being paid to be a veteran leader of the club and to get in there and get stuck in, and he did that very well. A few clearances as well. So yeah, for his age and the responsibility he has on his shoulders, he stepped well above that. It's a very, very good spotlight by you. Last night, we have to briefly touch on, I think Jordan Sweet went okay considering he ended up shouldering the load on the night.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, it's what he's been training for all off season, to be fair. I would have thought he's been training to be the solo ruck.
We thought he was going into the year to be our number one ruck.
Yeah.
He started that way. So yeah. I thought he went okay. He's the only poor player that registered a hit out on the night. And the only other one I remember seeing taking chop outs was Ollie Wines, and he was unfortunately battled well, but didn't get a hit out. So
no, I was surprised by that. I checked that before, and because he was obviously the deployed second ruck when Vicentini went down. But he was doing more of the groundwork, just waiting for the crumbs, I suppose.
Yeah, just someone's got to put a body in, so he did sacrifice the body to get, and then hopefully bring it to secondary stoppage, or somehow get someone gets a win out. But I thought Sweet went okay. Vicentini's obviously done for the year, so again we rethink what we're doing there. But with Lukosius back and we'll segue into the forwards in a moment, I think it's going to be an interesting week for selections going forward. But that's for another day. But and I've seen Soldo's name on Twitter. I'm like, are we going to try the two? I'm like, no. I don't know what his Sandful form's been like, but I'd rather not go there at the moment. Unless
I think I actually wanted to watch the game on the weekend because I had time to, but I don't think it was on 7+. And if it was, I'm terrible at navigating the app, clearly. I think he actually had a standout game in regards to his season this year, and was one of the better players from what I understand. Maybe wrong, maybe right.
Yeah.
But by and large, seeing the majority of work of this year, I'm not confident at all, particularly how the rest of the side looked across the ground. I'm not really substituting anyone else out for a Soldo just to provide a second ruck option when, we'll obviously touch on it later, but we're coming in against West Coast this weekend, and Bailey Williams is a fairly athletic type anyway, so I don't think Soldo would help us in many regards, apart from keeping Sweet fresh, and Sweet clearly showed that he's up to it when he switched on as a solo ruck anyway. So again, we'll have time to discuss those things later and on Thursday, but credit to Sweet to go off of what you said at the start of that.
Yeah, because certainly you wouldn't have been planning to have the game exactly the amount of time in the middle he had, or maybe he would have been, but it's more the stuff around the ground as well. Like he would have had to chop a bit more of a versatile chop out and a warranted chop out in Vicentini, obviously. But unfortunate.
Well, one thing I do like about Sweet is that he aims to get involved in general play and possession chains, but he's always, I can't say always because this is more of an anecdotal memory, but I think the majority of the time that I like that he's generally looking forward to dispose of it.
Yeah.
He's rarely stuck in the mud. He does try and keep on the move, which for a ruckman, you're a midfielder at the end of the day, and Dean Cox was ahead of his time, and that's wise because he got himself involved in general play and he was quite effective. And one thing that I do appreciate about Sweet is that whenever he got the ball, I just remember him trying to look forward for a handball and moving it forward. So just an anecdote there to finish off on the midfield. I love that about Sweet. Again, anecdotal memory, but there is one nice chain of possession I remember going through the middle of the field that he very much got involved. Just got himself in position to receive and then knew exactly what he was doing with the handball. It was just a very smooth transition of the ball through the middle that he was involved in. So
more of that would be nice. But again, that's more or less down to how synergistic our whole game plan is going. But he certainly did show a bit more of what I like about Jordan Sweet again in this one. Forward line, it's probably the one line that I don't have too many complaints with on the night, because the only complaints I have are the people that were bringing it in those moments where we were thought we could have taken more advantage, and that's nothing to do with your Mitch Georgiades and your Jack Lukosiuses or your Willie Riolis, who between them kicked 10 goals. Those three, if you have your small and then two talls and they all kick 10 goals between them, you go, what can you complain about? And then Sam Powell-Pepper obviously pops up with a couple as well.
Pep's kick two. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. They kick accurately.
Yep.
14 goals. Again, I said last week, if you're kicking 16 goals, you're generally winning. And if you're losing with 16 goals, you generally amidst a pretty fantastic game of footy, from a broadcast point of view. And I mean, we kicked 14. Again, there's a lot to be proud of in this game. It just sucks that we have to be like, oh, well, you take the good with the bad, because there was bad. And I hate that. I hate that. But the forwards, going into the game, Lukosius back in. George kicks four. He gets his four scoring shots. I think he had five in the end.
Yeah.
He kicks truly Lukosius, but not only did Lukosius kick a handful of goals, he kicked two of them from length,
From 50 and an angle as well. Like it was 50 and an angle.
Yeah, well, I think George. It goes a bit 50-50 about what he wants to do when he's out that far. And in those positions, I think more often than not, we see George still even try and hit up the 25 meters out in front.
Yeah.
Little dob kick or whatnot. But it's just nice. Obviously, we're going to get Todd Marshall back next year, but it's just nice to know that we've got a guy that can kick 55 meters. And to be honest, the first one that he kicked from length, it looked like he just swung through the not went through the motions, but it felt like he could have got a bit more into it if he wanted to. It was quite a fluid, semi-nonchalant action, and it still made the distance. So it's good to see someone kicking long and kicking accurately, because it is just another weapon that you have as a forward group. If you've got your two key posts, three potentially next year, all kicking truly, because we've seen Todd Marshall at his best kick accurately.
Yeah.
So if that's a weapon that we possess next year, again, now we have to look at next year. But it was just satisfying, and I underestimated Jack Lukosius' height, particularly in relation to Mitch Georgiades. There's a moment after a goal, I think it might have been Lukosius' goal, where they all got together and like the drinks coming out and whatnot from the trainers. And Lukosius had that little bit of extra size on George, and before realizing that, I just, without obviously looking at statistics, I just had it in my mind that they were pretty much the same height. But Lukosius is just that little bit taller.
3 centimeters on him, according to the Port Adelaide website. I just Georgiades is at 192, and
looks a bit more than that on the telecast, but maybe that's just optical illusions at play. The fact of the matter is, he presented well, Mitch presented well, and then you get the three from Rioli, plus a drop mark in the pocket, which was he got two hands to, again on one of our little runs that
Mitch had a couple of drop marks too on the earlier in the game.
Yeah.
He had that one in the goal.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Go. There was one more, I think. So Mitch could have had 6 if he'd probably taken those 2 marks, maybe.
That mark in the goal square, 9 times out of 10, he's taking that.
Yeah.
And Derm rightfully,
the positional
investigated
situation.
it. And like he said, to be fair, George started outside the goal square, so he couldn't be sure in the moment that the ball was actually going to go through, and that was off of Lockie Jones's boot, I think. And that would have, I'm sure Lockie would have enjoyed that little positive moment and stat on his ledger had George ended up shepherding it through in hindsight. But getting two hands to it and dropping it. Darcy Byrne-Jones featured, and I mean, nine times out of 10. So we kick the last three goals of the second quarter,
Yeah.
and Darcy Byrne-Jones has a shot 27 minutes in, 27 and a half minutes into that second quarter. So there's not much time left on the clock. Nine times out of 10, based on his not only his recent form, but the form over the last 2.5 years, he kicks that. But for whatever reason, on the night,
After
it
he
just hooks to the
executed a really
left.
good tackle for holding the ball as well. Was that one or was that another one? He had a good tackle that set him a
Um,
goal. I'm trying to think if he kicked the goal from that
that's a
one.
great question. How did he get it? How did he get it? Yeah, I think that was it. That was
Yeah,
the
it was
shot
because he
because I
doesn't
think he
have a
ran
goal.
down Harris Andrews.
Yeah. And it was the same moment that like Derm or the commentators were talking about, like Powell-Pepper just blitzes through the screen quickly. Like it's just like, look at that
Yeah,
flash, that's Powell-Pepper coming through, and they're talking about the perceived pressure of just a Powell-Pepper running, like and like
that's
that,
right. That's the presence that he
yeah,
has.
they were really really keying in on Powell-Pepper when it was actually really just a great tackle from Darcy Byrne-Jones as well. But they were like, they kept on showing it, and
Mm.
you just see this flash of a white Guernsey just like in the blur of the background. And they're like, that's Powell-Pepper, like. Um, It's
Yeah,
like that's the
yeah,
perceived
yeah.
pressure of this guy. Like, yeah, and Harris. I think
Oh,
they did
and I
actually.
mean,
You do see Harris
sliding
Andrews like
doors.
pauses for a second because he's probably there is like some reason
He's
to it.
like,
So,
oh,
yeah, there's Bell Pepper out of the corner of my eye. So yeah,
don't run
and
into me.
yeah, that was don't hurt me. Um, yeah, that was yeah, because I when Darcy got that tackle and was lining up for goal, I was like, ah, there's those ones you bank and there's a one, and often when I'm that comfortable, it's usually when it goes wrong. But yeah, you're sitting there thinking. Yeah, it's funny when,
Goal.
yeah, exactly.
You're just thinking goal in that
That's his
moment.
goal for the day. If he doesn't get too many other opportunities, this is his moment. He's going to get his goal and he'll go on his
Yeah.
merry way.
Because
Oh,
did he get one
no, he doesn't have a goal on the sheet.
outside of that?
No,
Ah,
he's only got the
no,
one
yeah. So
behind.
that, yeah. Because I think he yeah, hit someone else up inside 50. Again, that retention rate, you attribute to DBJ, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So many sliding doors moments. And look, again, I'm sure there's Brisbane Lions podcast. You know, they'll be overcome with joy for that 10-minute period, but I'm sure they'll find, sliding doors moments that they could have increased their lead or whatnot. But yeah, obviously I don't fucking care about them. I
yeah,
just think about the moments that we could have taken more advantage of that would have given us a fairly decent chance at giving it a nudge amidst all the injury crisis. But as a whole, you can't really fault the forward group. Um, yeah, Joe Richards bobbed up with one, which was a very interesting reverse swing
yeah,
goal that I, yeah, honestly thought did not go through. But yeah, yeah, they presented well. They created opportunities, and was it on our Patreon show? I think this was this the line we thought we could take most advantage in? I think it
I think
was
I think we
because
did say
outside
that.
of Harris Andrews,
Yeah,
just got a bunch of more or less role players. There's no out and out superstars in that back line. They're all serviceable. They're all honest
mm,
cogs in their machine. But with the bit of firepower that we had at our disposal, yeah, we discussed it. We thought it was an area that we could take advantage of. And look, like from our key posts, like they did.
yeah,
Unfortunately, though, there was still those moments, and I mean, you take away half of Brisbane's goals in that stretch, and the margin is much much more what you would think it would be without our forwards kicking truly. Like we didn't lose it because they couldn't take advantage. It was totally out of their control, but by and large, they did what they had to do.
yeah, yeah. Um, I wanted to get to my spotlight, which isn't exactly forward line, but there's three players on the day that had three players for us that had 2 goal assists. Are you aware of who they are?
I am. I was about to say one, but I'll let the anticipation build.
Well, yeah, it's
Do you want me to? I know one off the top of my head, and I'm going to keep my hands here so I don't click over to the stats. I know Ollie Wines had two.
yeah. The other two were Travis Boak. So he could have had more
Yes.
if he did up those targets. Um, the other one was Hugh Jackson, and I wanted to highlight him before we get
The
into.
other guy.
Yes, exactly. get into the segments because I think there's something about his game when he comes on, and I mentioned this in a Twitter thread today actually because it was
Yeah, he's a peacock.
yeah, you got to let him fly, Ken. Um, and just imagining Ken just at Bed Bath and Beyond quoting TLC lyrics now, like in his second job.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, the other guys we've spoken about that, and I hope the listeners of the CREEDCAST appreciate a comedy as such. But it is really one of the best modern comedies out there. It's so
Absolutely,
funny.
it's great. But yeah, Hugh Jackson's role on the day, I think, as I said, I mentioned in a Twitter thread today, because people are, now that the season's for all intents and purposes for the men over, some people just play all the kids, and I think Dave Lloyd made a really good point to, two guys that
He
we love,
did
like Patrick as
several
well,
points.
but talking about how just playing the kids just purely because you want to play with, he didn't say this, but this is my kind of paraphrasing of it, that, just to play with the new toys doesn't always work. And I kind of chimed in and said, yeah, Hugh Jackson's maybe a good example of why patience can yield some rewards, because he's come in just looking comfortable at the level. We're not saying he's blowing the league out of the water, but he's looking comfortable. Just a random point of his game, I really love his handball game. He's got a good touch on his handballs, the way he can loop them when he needs to loop them, just get the right force on them to get them, kind of the speed of travel through the air or whatever you want. I don't know how to exactly talk about it, but like he just has good touch.
No,
on
I know what you mean.
games and quick ball to hand, ball to foot. Like that's one thing I love about, like, we've talked about that with Joe Richards at times and different players that we love when they've got that just quickness of hand, because that's what can break open the line sometimes, is when you're, particularly if you're in a player like Hugh Jackson, what he's doing is often being involved in those handball chains or chains of possession where there's pressure coming and you need to flick it behind quickly. He had in his time on the field, what did he have? 12 disposals, but he went at 83.3%. So reasonable disposal efficiency. Like I said, he is one of three players to have multiple goal assists. He had the 4 score involvements, and he was on the field for a fair bit of the game due to the early sub, but he was the sub, and he came in and played a role and showed a little bit of attitude as well, which we love. He's a Port Adelaide fan, and there was one moment he gave a little like hand motion to the umpire, like a frustration, which 18 months ago he might have given away a 50, but it was just like, it was just like, I loved it. It was just like this. It was like,
I can't remember the moment, but I think I remember agreeing with his frustration.
I did too, yeah.
Like, I can't remember what the infringement was, but yeah, I agree with his frustration, like I said.
Yeah. And then look, there's been plenty made about it. Nick Revolt's, crying about how he should have got a suspension for that knee into Zorko. And look, to be objective, I'm like, yeah, that's I was like worried when I saw it. I was like, oh, he might, but he's got a fine for it. And my subjectivity as a Port fan and someone that, and it's very good seeing all the Twitter comments and Instagram comments from just random fans. A lot of people are like, yeah, Zorko, play on.
He had it coming. Yeah. Oh, and didn't he fucking sing the blues after it, Dane Zorko, and being totally unself-aware.
Yeah.
Just petulant little child. And it was it was fairly egregious. Like it wasn't like years gone by, you see players accidentally slip and fall with their knee into someone's, solar plexus or something like that while they're laying on the ground. But it was a fairly egregious knee to the ribs.
Yeah.
And
he's probably
however,
lucky he didn't sink with too much force. Like he didn't really put, like you can knee harder than that. That's probably what saves him.
It was just enough to know someone's copped one in the ribs, and
maybe Zach was all reacting afterwards was a little bit too obvious for him to really be like, you can't, like, we're not going to give, there's no suspension, because then he gets up and once he sees the play, like Zorko's immediately goes from pain to like, okay,
he's into action, isn't he? Happens a lot in
there's a little bit of remonstration
sport
afterwards, and Hugh Jackson just gives Zorko a big two-handed push in the back again. I'm like, yeah, this kid's not worried about he's not.
No, I enjoyed it too.
Yeah. He's made the show, and he's not he's not feeling. Some players get to the show as an MLB parlance, but and kind of shrink a little bit as they're kind of getting used to it. Hugh Jackson's just come in and been like, yeah, I'm playing for my childhood club, and I'm gonna give it as good as I get. And he's playing showing some good skills. It's funny because earlier in the year when people were talking about players that could come up, there was Hugh Jackson's names come up a lot over the last couple of years, and a few people were like, we're not sure if he's shown enough, and at this point isn't, but he's come up and he's playing a role. Well, I'm not saying he's ever going to be all Australian or anything like that, but what we're seeing so far is a player that can play a very good role in the limited opportunities he's had. I mean, that first quarter with Joe Richards last week, when he had the 5 score involvements in the first quarter and was one of the leading possession getters and score involvement players in that opening quarter against Carlton. Like that's high level stuff. So yeah, I had to spotlight Hugh Jackson's role again because he got dropped to the sub.
Well, you mentioned his handball. I think a feature of his game in general play is his ability to crumb the football at speed. And again, to go off of what you're saying, like when a new player comes into the AFL system, you want to see what attributes they have and what they can contribute at AFL level. And there's a few little insights that he's given to suggest that, like you've mentioned, he doesn't seem overawed by it. He seems eager to impact on a game of football. But just that ability to be in a crumbable position. I mentioned this, I think it was last week. Just our lack of representation at ground level on many occasions has frustrated me over seasons, let alone this season. But so his ability to identify where the crumbable space is, but then to hit it at speed as well when the ball's in motion, and then to outlay a handball more often than not, like you said, with effectiveness. So and his career somewhat, in some ways, is at a bit of a crossroads coming into this year because he's been heavily hampered by injury in his early years, and like you said, it's SANFL form, and what do you make of it? How long of a stretch is he going to get his chance? Because he's a smaller player. He's clearly showing hardness that I definitely underestimated. But it's just a bit of the is he going to make it? Do we need him? I think those were the kinds of sentiments. But credit to him with the limited amount of opportunities that he's received so far this season, and I dare say he'll receive more now. He's taken it. In my opinion, he's grasped it with both hands. He even got the plaudits of Derm. I think Derm was cutting off commentary just to give him further plaudits in certain occasions.
It was a fun Derm night, by the way.
It was, yeah. I didn't want to. You mentioned that you turned the commentary off mostly for Country Road. The sound off due to Country Road. But on the flip side, it was a Derm night that didn't make you want to turn the sound off.
Exactly,
which is always nice if he channels himself into that portion of it. Because who was it? Nick Del Santo was kind of leveling out the expert comments with a bit more kind of sensibility.
Yeah. Derm just like incredulous.
Derm gets very nuanced sometimes.
And then he was just getting great, like the Zorko like rolling Drew, Drew, Drew was the only person.
Appreciated that commentary.
I did so, and he's just like, but like they've gone back to it. He's just like, that's why we have this rule. He's just
and then sorry, I mean 50 meters. On the other side, though, because we conceded 2 on the night, but the one where the one that Mitch Georgiadis gives up, where the kick has gone about 8 to 10 meters, and so Georgiadis has then, admittedly, either not heard the whistle or ignored the whistle, assumed it was potentially to play on. I don't know. And then gone to tackle. I think it was Leicester. Leicester gets a 50, and I think that results in the goal. Late in the fourth quarter after we just had our run of goals.
It kind of broke our back a little bit. I think we were within 3 or 4 goals when it happened, and
because he'd gone bang bang.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there did Derm talk about that one as well? Like he did kind of talk. Neither
Oh
one
yeah, I
before
mean,
that.
yeah, it was more
Oh, he was
like
talking
the
about more
kick's
about.
fucking gone 10 meters, but
Yeah.
the umpire had called it a mark.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
It felt
it
like
was
we
that
couldn't
moment.
buy.
So Georgiadis had gone bang bang. He'd kicked two of his four goals in fairly quick succession, and then yeah, it was that 50 and a weird contest. It got out the back. It was kind of fumbly, and yeah, Levi Ashcroft fucking kicks a gimme in the goal square, and that
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, breaks our back, and they kick three of the last four goals. Before we get that consolation prize at the end.
Hmm.
Um, more how many sliding doors moments do you want to fit into a game of football? Um, but yeah, it's just yeah. I in rewatch, I don't think the umpiring was as bad as what it was in the moment. We definitely, as supporters, felt hard done by. But when it comes to things like those 50-meter penalties or lack thereof that Derm, in my opinion, rightly called out, yeah, it just makes you grit your teeth together,
Yeah.
give them a grind even.
Yeah, because I think the free kick count was actually, and yeah, I don't. That was probably the only area I got frustrated on the night was actually the lack of fifties. More like the free kicks, I thought were all there, reasonable, or I could understand. Like you have like that little bit of flexibility as a mature fan. You need to just have that flexibility in mind to just go, yeah, that like this is a hard
That
sport.
was there.
That is a hard sport to umpire as well. Like put yourself in their shoes as best you can, even though I want to scream at them half the time. But yeah, it was like stuff like that. That Willem Drew one where Zorko absolutely, that was an uncontested mark for Drew, and then Zorko comes in, tackles him, rolls him over the ground, and yeah,
Mm.
Derm rightly pointed out that that's 50 every day of the week and twice on Sundays, and yet it wasn't on Saturday night. So yeah, it was a frustrating one, but yeah, glad to go through the therapy with you. Did you have anything else, or did you want to get into the segments?
Let's get into the
Let's
segments.
get into the segments. Let's do it.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Grady's best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks cruelly.
Robbie! Let him entertain you!
Alrighty, Wilson Gray first, as always. I get to go first this week, but before that, I'll just let you know who won last week's, and it was Jamie's nomination of Big Sav's one-man show defensively, getting the spoil in, then somehow regathering the ball, handballing to himself, and then laying out a nice kick out. So it was a great one. And I watched it back. I was like,
Yeah.
Jesus, this is good. So I almost would have voted for it if I used my tie break. So yeah, that was a good nomination, and I think won 67 to 33 or something like that. So thank you to everyone always for voting, and anyone listening. A reminder that you just go to Instagram on generally around Wednesday night is when I get them up there for the vote, and they stay there for 24 hours. So get there on Wednesday night or throughout the day on Thursday. You can get your votes in. I get to go first this week. My nomination, I'm going with a little bit of tackling from Josh Sin on Kai Lohmann, almost midway through the second quarter.
Levi Ashcroft mops it up to Zorko. A tumble kick. Lohmann keeps his feet. Sin, great follow-up.
Well done. Great tackle. I'm glad the umpires are rewarding these. You pin one arm.
Kind of the ball's coming out of our 50, and Kai Lohmann is going to gather the ball, and Sin kind of puts pressure on to make Lohmann spill it, and Sin falls to the ground, and Lohmann gets back up and gathers possession, and in that time, Sin's gotten off the ball and made the secondary attempt, got to Lohmann, tackled him, kind of surprised Lohmann, and caught him holding the ball, and then Sin kind of lays on his back like exhausted after for a second before he gets helped up by a teammate. Yeah, I thought that was great. That was great. A two-act kind of Wilson Gray. It was a one moment, but he kind of gets two acts in there, puts the pressure on to get Lohmann to spill it, and then gets back up and completes the tackle. And yeah, like I said, Lohmann almost looked surprised that the same guys got him again and got him holding the ball. So yeah, Josh Sin, some good defensive pressure and good just desperation to keep winning the ball, which was kind of the kind of acts that kept us in the game all night, I think. Josh Sin's tackle on Lohmann.
Yeah, great call from you. We love second and third efforts. Defenders Union night. from us. We actually spoke about it briefly earlier, but I'm going to go with Zerk Thatcher's rush on the line, spoil on the line to negate what appeared to be a certain goal. Yeah, desperation is something that is always appreciated, particularly when it prevents a goal being scored against, which, yeah, we could have done with a lot more of on the night.
Moving forward, Bailey has to slip the tackle, goes for home, Bailey for his third, and Zerk Thatcher again.
God, that was powerful football. That was just power football, the way they disarmed. You run into the roadblock, almost got the job done.
But yeah, not much more to be said. It was just a good piece of effort when he looked out of the realms of possibility to get a knuckle on the ball and send it through for rush behind.
Yeah, no, I love that one. I actually had that as my second choice as well. So it's very good couple there. And that was only a minute or two after my Josh Sin tackle. So it was like, and that we were 20 to 25 points down at that time, and you could have been forgiven for maybe thinking, oh, this is going to get out of hand. But it's like those kind of moments kept us in the game and got us that chance, even though it was a remote chance as it was late on. Kind of, the snowball effect of a game. Football.
Absolutely, yeah. I've mentioned it before. Footballers do believe in the butterfly effect, whether they admit it or not. Yeah, we've always got that lingering, oh, well, if this happened, then this would have happened. Yeah, just ask people about the 2014 grand final and if Port were in it, even if they don't think Ken Hinkley is a good coach. Anyway, just an honourable mention before we move on. Butters, again, another sliding doors moment to our chagrin. Butters splitting the pack. Very, what was it, 2021 against Hawthorn maybe? Or 2020 even. Back then it was Scott Lysette just dipping it down to Zach Butters, who just splits the pack and runs through and kicks the goal. In the third quarter, we had almost an identical piece of play. Sweet just gets the light tap with the Butters just raging through the center of the stoppage and kicks it on the left from essentially the top of the goal square and misses. So one that, again, he's probably kicking 9 times out of 10, and another sliding doors moment that we are left to lament.
Yeah, weird Zach Butters.
But yeah, honourable mention for the stoppage work.
Yeah, it's a weird Zach Butters year that he's only got that one goal for the year, considering how well he's played. You just expect him to get a few more, but that would have been a very, very handy goal at that time. One more honourable mention I had was there was a Rosie's like tackle on Starcevic, I think like 3 or 4 minutes into the game. He almost looks like he picks him up, and it's again he catches him holding the ball, kind of at half forward or half back. He just wraps him up and just brings him to the ground and kind of pins the arm right just to be able to do it and get him catching the holding the ball. So there was some good tackling. There's some good pressure at times in the game. Again, it's just 10 to 15 fucking horrible minutes away from being potentially a very good win. Good 2 picks. I'm looking forward to seeing what the people pick out of those. Let's get on to the goal of the week.
Monfries has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint, Stevie Mobler, what a time! Oh! He is floating on air now!
Alrighty, goal of the week. Jamie's about to go first on nominating this week, but so I'm just going to mention that his nomination, he went 2 from 2 with his nominations last week, of Berg's big boom from beyond 50 against Carlton, won goal of the week last week pretty handily, I think. Maybe won with beyond 80% of the vote. So, everyone loved that one. Against, I think, unnominated Willies. Quick Draw McGraw was the commentary from the channel.
From Nick Revolt, And apologies for, just to extend upon that, I apologize to anyone who watches predominantly Channel 7 telecasts, because I'm pretty much always watching KO, so it's what I have to go off with the commentary chat and whatnot. But just because we always reference KO, but I'm sure there's a portion of people who may watch it on 7.
Yeah, just
So
for when I'm
apologize for
taking
not
the
referencing them ever.
yeah, and when I'm grabbing my clips, I'm just taking whatever the AFL's got up. So and sometimes they have Channel 7, sometimes it's
It does change.
Fox.
Yeah, I know.
Because
Sometimes we've
if it's
Yeah,
Saturday
sometimes we've
games, it's
spoken
only
about the
yeah,
commentary. Yeah.
exactly.
And then the clip plays the other commentary.
Exactly. Yeah. Um so yeah, that's why. It's just whatever's easy for me to get to be able to do the clips. Um
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, all good.
You get to go first in your goal of the week nomination. There was a few good ones this week. Obviously in a good high scoring game that it was.
Yeah. Some really entertaining goals, some out of the textbook goals, and some head scratches as well. Look, out of the list though, I think I'm gonna go with Jack Okosha's shot on goal in the fourth quarter.
Same spot, but other end of the ground. So left half forward.
Can he get it to move left to right once again?
Lukosius.
Oh, hang on.
Yes!
That is superb. And the power will not roll over.
But what we're also learning is how often can they get the ball to Lukosius? If he can finish like this, they've still got Georgiades up front in this last quarter.
Let's go.
You never know.
It's fantastic, isn't it? You wide.
Where basically a minute in, and the commentary team are talking about how it's from distance, from an angle, and in that pocket he'll need to get a bit of a left to right, and then he just dobs it, and it does in the air. It does that kind of reverse swing where it's kind of tracking left, and then it just sails through. It just swings to the right, and it just drops in the hole. Just like a basketball shot. He just shot from distance, and the ball did the work and dropped into the hole for a goal. It was very entertaining.
Yeah, he had some great kicks in the night. Very, very pleased with his comeback to AFL footy, considering it was his first game back. A great pick by you. I meant to mention it earlier, but I just do remember when I went to the internal trial in the preseason, he had some booming kicks at Albert, and I kind of like whetted the appetite for what could come. And it's been disappointing that he's been injured for so long, but he certainly showed us quite immediately just how important that boot could be going forward for the next few years. So, great pick by you. I'm going to nominate. I'm going to go with Willie Rioli's opener. I just thought that was I pick a lot of Willie Rioli, and I do love Willie. But
he's got the magic.
Yeah.
He's got the magic.
It's the one where he gathers it, fairly close to goal, but it's still a ways out from the goal square, and just quickly reads the situation and chucks it on the check sides it from on the outside of the boot, and but again, it kind of did it in the way that only Willie Rioli can do. That it was never in doubt. He knew exactly what he was doing, and finished it with a plum, which was the first goal of the game.
He's going to get a second look at it. Still not able to take it clean. Butter's always dangerous. Rioli outside of the right boot. That's good enough for the first of the game. And Willie starts the party.
Well, it's great creativity outside of the right foot. Half a step.
He's a talent, isn't he?
His
feet are just wonderful.
Just the goal sense.
So congrats to anyone out there, gamble responsibly, but had Willie Rioli for first goal of the game, and he kicks it and starts off a very good start to the game for us.
Just on Willie Rioli, great call up by you. Definitely in my top 2 or 3 to pick. But just wanted to give a shout out to the new podcast that Port Adelaide Football Club have obviously started called Peeled. Their first episode. So it's with Daniel Norton, the comms media manager for Port Adelaide, and Jared Walsh, obviously from SENSA, and our ground announcer at home games. Their first episode is with Willie. I listened to it. It's a great episode for people who, like us, who kind of pay attention to a lot of Port media. There's some stuff in there that you probably have heard before, but there's also some further insights into him, his background, his frame of mind, and things like that. So obviously not as many people have as much time or as much focus on these things as potentially what we do, but it's a great listen if you're interested in kind of peeling back the layers, for want of a better term, of some of what I would assume is our players and their personalities. So great episode from Willie. Yeah, just kind of makes you love him a little bit more, hearing him speak honestly. Obviously within a official club-based, still media managed type setting. You know, we're not going to get real nitty gritties, but you're just getting to know the stories about people behind the footballer, and a good way to start was Willie.
Oh, it's pretty brave of Willie to put himself out there with some of the things he's gone through this year, and there was some pretty honest anecdotes about his mindset there as well. So, yeah, probably some would be, those, we're not so surprised by it, but yeah, there'd be some that could listen to that, particularly if you were a neutral fan and just had an interest. It would be interesting listening. You're going to find out a lot about the bloke and what kind of makes up who he is as a footballer and as a person.
Yeah, and I think if you're a neutral supporter, it would have been very easy for you this year to cast aspersions or hold some perspectives on Willie that potentially aren't exactly true to who he is. And yeah, this is why episodes like this podcast, I think there was even like maybe a Rucci article earlier this season, the biggest cynics maybe call it a bit of damage control just based on that little bump in the road earlier this season. But at the end of the day, like, we all, I would hope, know, and we've certainly discussed it, we know how much of a well-meaning, good-hearted person that he is, and it's good for him to be able to show that.
Yeah, he's well loved around the club too. You see it when a few of the players shared the episode, and guys like Boak just saying how much he loves him, and certainly I just noticed it across the year when you see the different players that share just random anecdotes of their daily lives that involve Willie, and you just see that he's what you think about him as a person outside of it is very, very much different to how he's seen on who he actually is, rather than a few moments that you remember from football games. And I haven't listened to it fully yet. I've caught a few bits of it, but as I've said, I've been crook the last couple of days. But I'm looking forward to listening to it fully. But it's great people behind it in Walshy and North, which is great. And two people that I've had a bit to do with both of them, just chatting and Walshy Speak Good workshop and whatnot. But they're good people behind it, good people to get having those conversations, because they're very empathetic and good people, and that's probably what aids a guy like Willie being able to feel comfortable enough to open up a bit about it. So, good stuff. Good shout by you to give that a little bit of a plug, because it's a very, very good initiative of the club to kind of do something like that. It lets you get a bit more inside the player rather than just some of the more fluffy stuff that you can get out there. Cool. You ready to get into the Player of the Year votes?
Yep.
Let's do.
Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting.
Alrighty, I get to go first this week, and it's an interesting week this week with how the game went and some of the players I wanted to reward. So mine are all over the place, particularly as I've done them kind of in the midst of a cold and flu tablet binge that I've been on over the past 24 hours. So, and I didn't rewatch the game. I've just taken it from my notes on the night, and obviously having watched it fully and then gone back and looked at the stats. So, and again, some performances around the ground that I wanted to reward. So I'm going with Mitch Georgiades with my one vote. I'll keep my honourable mentions until you've gone, but there was a few that I wanted to get in there. It's been a tough week, actually, considering it was a loss. But Mitch Georgiades with my one vote. 7 marks, 4 goals in his 10 disposals. Like, he didn't have a high disposal game, but I can't ask him for much more from a forward against the reigning premiers for doing what he did. And he could have had a couple more, both with, he missed a couple of marks, but also I think if the delivery had been better earlier in the game, he would have had a couple more as well. So for what the difficulty of the game and everything like that, I've got it. That's exactly what I want from Mitch Georgiades against one of the better sides in the competition. Given my 2 votes, giving them to Jack Lukosius. I think that if you've come back from a 14-week layoff, Obviously, he played in the SANFL last week, but other than that, no footy since round 2, which didn't really count as a game, so no footy since round 1. 3 absolute beautiful goals. You would have been forgiven for thinking he hadn't missed a game all year with how well he was flushing those ones. He takes 9 marks, has 360 gained, which probably 100 of those were in 2 goals. But he was coming up the field a bit, had a bit involved in that. And again, he kicks the goals. He takes the opportunities he gets. Probably misses. I think he misses the easiest shot he had of the day because he kicks 3 goals, 1. But not going to give him too much. Not going to knock him too much for that because he was kicking goals at times when it kept us in the game or got us, going back and do it. So, never looked like missing those ones. He looked very, very comfortable. So, welcome back, Jack Lukosius. Long may it continue. Giving my 3 votes to Zach Butters. He had the 31 disposals. He's only went at 61%. Probably a little bit lower than some of his better days, but it was a tough game against one of the best midfields and one of the best teams of the last 3 to 4 years. He had the 584 gain, 7 inside 50s, 12 score involvements. I think he was higher up in the pressure acts. I don't actually have that in front of me, but I just remember looking at that earlier. So just it was a typical Zach Butters game. Maybe didn't have the highlights. That goal of that he just missed might have really been added to the highlights. But it was a solid Zach Butters game, and I guess that's probably a testament to how much we love him now. Is like this is just like what we look at as solid when he's had 31 disposals and 12 score involvements. But he was very, very good. Give my 4 votes to Connor Rozee. He had the 31 disposals as well. He went at 77.5%, 8 score involvements, 7 intercepts, 5 inside 50s, 8 rebound 50s. So it was a bit of both ends stuff. 5 marks, 680 gained. Just a really, really good Connor Rozee game considering. Again, there was a bit of positional switching with the injuries and whatnot, but I thought Rozee had a really nice game. He had a few moments where he got caught holding I don't know if he got caught on the ball, just got caught in some tackles, but that was
because he tried to dip, dodge, duck, dive, and dodge. And got caught by Lohman, I think.
Yeah, but there was some of that. That was at a moment where Brisbane's pressure was just really telling, and you kind of we had a lot of players dealing with that. So. Still Rozee had a really nice game. I thought again, not the highest of the high. It won't be a top 5 Rozee game in his career, but it was a very, very good one. I've given my 5 votes to Sam Powell-Pepper. I had to give it to him. I was just like,
right, wow.
It's an emotional 5 votes. So I'm like, that man left every.
Well, he's not going to get any more for a while, so you might as well.
I thought. For your impact on a game versus time on ground, and he was the barometer on that game, he dragged us back into it. And I think his impact was felt after he left the field as well. I think that was part of what he'd started. We tried to continue with the rest of the game through, and there was 16 disposals. He went at 87.5%. He had the 2 goals, 4 marks. There's not much other else that you can talk about in that, but when you've had 16 disposals essentially in a half and a bit. Going at as well as you did, kicking a couple of really crucial, like one of those goals, the running one, I almost thought about nominating as well, but and a great celebration for his newborn as well. But then the other one was a great mark, and then set shot as well. So it was like he did a bit of both. A couple of marks inside 50, I think, including that one that he kicked the goal from. It was very much an emotional 5 votes for Sam Powell-Pepper, but I think. If he continued on the way he was going, he was probably going to be best on field. And I think even at the end of the game, you look at the impact that players had in the game, you'd look at him as being near the top, just what he did in that time. And again, I think if he doesn't do what he did then, regardless of injury or not, we're not as close as we were midway through the 4th quarter. I think he something about his spirit that he attacked the game with carried through. And and maybe they wanted to try to win it for him afterwards. But I think even if he'd stayed on the field, then we would have kept on trying to push to win because of what he did. So, I was struggling to find my best on field, and I was just like, give me the Powell-Pepper. I'm going emotional. I genuinely think
it's poetic. It's
impact
romantic. It's emotional. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, it's out of the box. Because. Why the fuck not? Why the fuck
exactly.
not? Yeah, if you're extrapolating it out, you crunch the numbers. He probably is giving it a good nudge across 4 quarters. But I love it. So Honourable mentions for me are Willem Drew, who I mentioned before, JHF, keeps getting some stuff done, improved game after coming back from his shoulder, or he didn't even have a layoff after he did his shoulder. He's obviously been playing injured. And Mitch Georgiadis is my honourable mention. And that's very much because Jack Lukosius is my one vote. And obviously, in that order, very similar sentiments to you. When you look at the statistics, compounded by the fact that Lukosius has missed so much football, Jack across the 4 quarters actually had a better statistical game than George. George only really shades him with the one extra goal. And you mentioned the stats before. They basically say it all. Lukosius had more disposals. I think he went at a better percentage, more meters gained, more marks. He had 5 score involvements that, one was someone else's score, whereas George's 5 were all his scores on shots on goal. So Jack gets my 1 vote. I've actually given my 2 votes to Ollie Wines. Very under the radar game, and probably a lot of it we were missing in our game against Sydney. The 22 disposals, the 7 of those contested, 7 ground ball gets. Ollie went at 86.4% disposal efficiency, 270 meters gained, so he's just picking off the ones he should. 5 marks, 2 goal assists, which we spoke about before, within his 9 score involvements, 6 clearances, 5 of which were from the center, 20 pressure acts, and 6 tackles. So really a stat line that should probably pop him up a little bit further, but very under the radar. He's not really getting spoken about much at all. He obviously got put into the second ruck, sorry. Looking at all those delicious statistics, it's hard to go past. Probably should be in the 3 spot, but I'm giving my 3 to Travis Boak for all the reasons that we spoke about earlier. Just kind of put the team on his back in the way that he's a bit of a father figure on the field to a lot of these players. Took it right back to his captaincy days. 27 disposals, 7 of which were contested. He also had 6 ground ball gets. He went at 81.5, which I think you mentioned in our little wrap-up of him. Similar meters gains to Ollie. 7 marks, 2 goal assists in his 8 score involvements and 3 clearances for himself. So great effort from Trav, and definitely a very interesting topic vis-a-vis 2026. My 4 votes go to Rosie. I thought it was a pretty decent captain's game again from Connor, and he's definitely not doing his All-Australian chances any harm with this form that he's in. He just keeps getting the statistics all in the right places. In his 31 disposals, he had 17 pressure acts as well, 11 of which were in the defensive half, which you would imagine with his positioning. 8 score involvements, 8 rebound 50s, and 5 inside 50s. So to nearly 700 meters gain. Fantastic captain's game. So originally I had Zach Butters in the 3 spot, just like you did. But a bit similar to Ollie, when you boil it all down, while he had his mistakes that I really wish that he would have corrected because it would have given us shots on goal, he had the 31 disposals, the ground ball gets, the meters gained, marks, 12 score involvements, which you said, and much like I think it was our votes last week, he had the 12 score involvements as well there. And when you're impacting score that much, it's hard to go past, from my opinion. 4 clearances. He had the 22 pressure acts, which you said you hadn't looked at yet, which I think is in our upper echelons. I'm looking at some 24s.
I knew he was up there. I just didn't have the number.
Yeah. 10 of which were in the defensive half too, and 6 tackles. So I'm pretty sure it was him and George who actually got coaches' votes out of this game. Butters, I think he got 5 coaches' votes, and George got 1 maybe. Looking at it like that, I moved him up because probably more so because of his impact on score and his elevated pressure acts as well for me. Not his best game, not his best 30 plus disposal game, but I think he featured enough. Yeah,
no, good votes. The reason I had the Boak stat so handily because he was in mine at one point, and
Yeah.
And yeah, Ollie was an honourable mention for me as well. It felt tough a couple of those ones leaving them out, but I mean, probably once I made the adult decision to just be like, POWELL-PEPPER's getting the 5 votes, and I'll figure the rest out. It's just
Yeah. I think I had a game similar earlier this season where it's just like immediate. I think it might have even been Sam Pepper. It's just, I think it was the Geelong. There was the Geelong game. It was just immediately as soon as it finished, it's like Peps is 5 votes. Figure the rest out later.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. And then you put 2 forwards in there, so yeah.
Yeah.
Again, made life a little bit harder, but. That's the beauty of the votes. That's how the cookie crumbles sometimes, which we love. And the leaderboard should be fairly interesting, but yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles. Walter Cronkite.
I need a Bruce Almighty rewatch. Yeah, no,
Everyone does.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting game to review. A heartbreaking one by the end of it, but it's not one I quite get to the end of doing a review and saying burn the tape, but I do want to burn the parts where our players got injured, because that stuff I never want to see again. It was a heartbreaking one and something we've seen a bit too much this year. So it is unfortunately the tail of the tape that is our season really is peppered by, and that's not a intentional one there. But
Sam Powell-Peppered, if you will.
It is peppered by a lot of injuries this year, unfortunately, but that is the tale that it is, and we can't change it. So yeah, we look forward now. Just to close off, we'll look forward to this weekend, in which we are at home Sunday twilight footy against West Coast, Sunday afternoon at 4:10. Before we get into looking at the injury lists, just immediately, Jamie, regardless of our positioning on the ladder or anything like that, we have to win this one.
Yeah. No, we do.
It's
Why do you say it like that?
I'm just like, it's a rare non-negotiable one for me. Like, there's been a lot
of I obviously wholeheartedly agree. Particularly because of how the Brisbane game ended as well. But unfolded, I should say, is probably a better word. But yeah, non-negotiable. Absolutely have to win.
Yeah. It's interesting now that we see the season having changed its narrative. Ken's already talking about playing that like spoiler now. Like, we're not attacking finals anymore. We're kind of accepting of the fate.
Disrupting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm happy with.
Yeah.
Considering the circumstances, I would obviously much prefer being in the hunt, not only for finals, but for top 4, of course. But that's not to be. So more than happy to play Disruptor.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's a few teams we can play Disruptor for yet, considering our draw the rest of the way. So,
and we got another showdown.
Exactly. I'd love to disrupt what is a tight top 4 battle for them. But that's a couple of weeks away. I look forward to getting into that one when it comes. But West Coast. Considering we're not going to be, we can't tank for draft picks this year. That's
right. That's a great point. There's not even that allure of finishing low to get a good draft pick.
Exactly.
Yes, we'd prefer to have it, but the fact that we don't means that we have to play Disruptor. We've got nothing like, your philosophies on football aside, being a Disruptor is all we've really got to play for, on top of pride and a winning culture.
Exactly. And, especially as we are in transition and probably starting to see more and more of what we're going to look like going into next year. I think it's like, again, I think I talked about it maybe weeks or months ago. Like, this does start becoming an extended preseason for next year. Like, we're playing games for premiership points with a new coach already in play. Like, this is one part of the transition, the coaching succession plan that does give you, now that we're in this position and we have no choice but to go on with where we're at. I sit there and go, now I'm like, it's kind of cool that Carr is in the position he is, because he, any other usual coaching transition that happens in the off season when you only bring someone in, then it's just like, oh, well, then we have to look to preseason to see what we can do. Carr's already in the seat. He's in the box. We can really start, looking towards what we're doing for next year with him there, with everyone. It's open knowledge. It's not like you're hiding anything. This is a great opportunity to get some preseason work in. I'm doing quotations of for those that are listening, and those on YouTube will see it. But yeah, I see it as a bit of, you've got to just take the positives, and that's what I see now is like we have the opportunity, and this is there's also just winning games is a good thing for the psyche of footballers, particularly ones that are going to be around next year, and it's going to they want to at least win these ones comfortably to know that they're not the worst team, like they're just somewhere, they just unfortunately found themselves in the bottom echelon of what is a weird gap between top and bottom this year.
No, exactly right. And in some regards, not a lot changes for mine, because the crux of our side is all under 25. Like the majority of the players taking us forward into the car era are under 25, and I think if you average out the bulk of those players, it's probably 23 years old is the average. When you consider Josh Sin, Lockie Jones, Connor Rosie, Jace Burgoyne, JHF, Vizentini, although he'll be injured, of course, for the rest of the year. I'm just looking at the team that played on Saturday night. Lukosius, Georgiadis, Sweet isn't that old. Bergman, still young. Butters, obviously. So, like I said, a lot doesn't change. And even the ones who are a little bit older than them, they're still 26, 27, 28. Coming into their prime. It's only really Trav and Ollie who are on the back end of it all. And I'm not sure how old Willie is. He's probably on the latter stages. That little gap in time where he missed. So he's 30. But just to go along with that discussion you mentioned on Twitter earlier today, playing kids versus picking on merit, I'm always for selection integrity. Obviously, that doesn't mean ignoring young players, but it's more so if there's a 50-50 call between an older player who is closer to the end and a young player, then yeah, in these situations you go with the young. But in my opinion, everyone's young enough, and everyone in our best 23 can be there for our next premiership. So for mine, you're not really changing much. Obviously, we have some forced changes, and it'll be interesting to see where they go. I mean, albeit a loss, our Magpies didn't perform that badly. A couple of games gone to losses, but some players who are putting their hand up for selection, which is all you can ask for, really, from the next level down.
Yeah. I mean, some of those mid-season draft picks, obviously, we've already seen Manny Liddy, but Ewan McKinley was in the emergencies last week, and Harrison Ram, I think, has been looking okay down there as well. So there's a couple of options there. And because now we're looking at an injury list that has obviously most recently added to it POWELL-PEPPER, Radaglia, and Vicentini for the season. Xavier Walsh, who you keyed in on in the preseason, unfortunately, is out for the season as well, and Marshall and Cochran. So a lot of decent players in there with season-ending injuries. Ryan Burton's a TBC. The guys coming back in will be ones definitely from kind of more the fringes, Magpies area. So, it'll be interesting selections. Obviously, on the West Coast side, they don't have too many injuries, but they've got a few key ones. Like the likes of Oscar Allen and Jake Waterman. Jake Waterman, who's a great young forward. Obviously, Oscar Allen, captain, and whatever's going to happen with him next year and all that stuff. But those two are out for the season. Elliot Yo's out for 2 to 3 weeks still. The only other one that I see there is Tyrell Dua is a test. But, they've got some, obviously, West Coast are a really young team. They've got a few draftees or, rookies from the last couple of years that are playing pretty well down the waffle. I think I've seen Tom Gross's name mentioned, who I just randomly in my other hobbies, I just sold a card of his last week and sent it off to someone over in the West, I think. So, anyway, so I saw his name come up in their waffle names. I was like, I had owned a card of him last week, a rookie card of him last week. So hopefully he doesn't come in and have too good a game and make me regret selling it too soon. But they've got some good young talent down the waffle, but nothing stand out. But they're in an interesting position, and ultimately, regardless of our injuries, we should be able to the team that ran out the game against Brisbane ran it out pretty well, considering they were low on rotations. So we should be able to bring it in again. We loved Manny Liddy's game. We've got some talent down there. We should be able to fill those gaps to be able to beat West Coast. And for me, I think we need to go in with the idea to give the fans a rare day out where they can just be comfortable. Adelaide Oval would be nice. Miles Bergman's 100th game as well, isn't it?
It is, yes. Oh, thank you for reminding me because, yeah, I sent you the message last week after Bergman signed. Yeah, so what more motivation do you need for this team? They'll want to respond after a disappointing loss that effectively ended their season. Miles Bergman 100th, like you mentioned, against a lowly opponent. I don't think we'll get any major surprises from selection. And like you said, we've got players who have had a few games this season. I think we've used the fourth most amount of players on our list, in the AFL. And we've also debuted a fair share of players this year. So Manny Liddy, Logan Evans come to mind. Those were the two that went out for our game against Brisbane. But yeah, a nice comfy day at the footy where the crescendo to the round, the last game on Sunday. So West Coast injury list is pretty damning though. 3 key outs, like you mentioned, but to be that quote unquote healthy and to still be pretty fucking average, I'm hoping we get another iteration of our forward line working together, George and Luco.
Yeah.
And just our defense shoring up. But we potentially don't replace Asava with a tool. Hopefully Lockie Jones shakes the cobwebs off a little further. And he can be the pseudo third tool. Again, Bergman, you can flex back, which they may indulge themselves with. Which is an interesting talking point because that's a here and now decision where the Bergman of the future will be, predominantly midfield. So again, maybe an interesting, probably not selection. He'll probably be listed at a half-back or a back pocket on the team selection list.
What he was last week, wasn't it?
Starting midfield on Sunday. So look, don't expect any huge surprises. There'll be some fairly obvious names come in, I would have thought.
Yeah. I will say, just thinking about it, because I just took their injury list and put it into my notes and I'm looking at it and it looks really short. There is a couple, you have to acknowledge that Dom Sheed and Jeremy McGovern have retired this year, so that's not even showing there, but they've retired injured essentially. So that's 2 guys that started the season as West Coast players that have now retired through injury and obviously understandably so. Sad circumstances for both. I mean, Dom Sheed's, got one of the greatest grand final moments in history, and Jeremy McGovern was part of that flag and part of that moment as well, actually. So in the lead up to it. But obviously his concussion, having to retire because of a concussion panel is a sad way to end your career. But so that is, a couple of guys, and we'll talk about it more in the squad show as far as how we can maybe attack them in certain areas. But you look at that side and go, that's a side we should be getting after. So I look forward to talking about it with you on Thursday. Hopefully I'm less sniffly and I think only a couple of coughs got through on the show today, but I've used the cough button liberally today. It's been I'm sure Jamie
I've got a lot of practice, maybe too much practice, sometimes leaving it off now.
I think I don't think I tricked myself at all once tonight. Neither did you, so I've done well considering the circumstances, because I am using some tissues and quite liberally back here, trying to keep my nose from leaking oil my microphone. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Jamie, as always, for getting on and gone through the therapy with me, and thank you everyone for listening, as always, for being part of our therapy sessions, as it has been more often than not in 2025. But regardless, we love this club and we'll keep turning up for it, and look forward to things turning around in the near future. Maybe not this year, but some golden skies ahead, I'm sure. So, cheers, man.
Thank you. Thank everyone else for sticking fat with us. I know it's tough tuning into sports podcast after your team's losing games and of whatever sport they're playing. But no, I appreciate the support, appreciate the listenership, and let's hope for a better result this Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Can the pair.
Can the bear.